Marcus Davis stepped out of the black luxury sedan and paused for a moment to take in the sight of the Heritage Grand Hotel. The building stood tall and proud, its stone walls gleaming under the afternoon sun. Marcus felt a surge of satisfaction and relief. After months of hard work, sleepless nights, and countless meetings, he had finally finished renovating this landmark property. It was more than a hotel to him. It was a dream he had carried since he was a teenager, growing up in a small apartment with his single mother. His success was proof that anything was possible. He adjusted his tailored navy blue suit and ran a hand through his neatly trimmed hair. Marcus had built his wealth through a chain of tech startups that changed how people use their phones and computers. With each successful venture, he had set aside part of his earnings for investments in real estate and hospitality. When he first toured this old hotel, he saw faded grandeur and potential. He saw stories waiting to happen in the grand lobby and the rooftop garden. He saw guests smiling over afternoon tea in the sunlit atrium. Now, after pouring millions of dollars into modernizing the rooms, restoring the woodwork, and training every member of the staff, he was ready to reopen the Heritage Grand in a grand way. Today was the day he would step back into its lobby as its owner, not just as a passing entrepreneur. The heavy glass doors swung open before him. He could almost hear the soft murmur of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the faint notes of a piano in the distant lounge. The lobby was even more beautiful than he had imagined. Polished marble floors stretched out in a vast expanse. A crystal chandelier hung at the center, scattering light across the room like 1,000 tiny rainbows. Plush armchairs and sofas in deep emerald green and rich burgundy lined the sides. Fresh white lilies in tall vases stood on every polished surface. The aroma of new leather mingled with the scent of fresh flowers. It was a place that felt both grand and welcoming. Marcus walked across the marble floor with measured steps. He wanted to savor every moment. Around him, staff members moved gracefully. Bellhops in crisp uniforms carried trays with glasses of sparkling water. The concierge smiled and offered a polite nod. Housekeeping supervisors bustled by, their bright badges announcing their names and roles. The entire team looked ready. They had rehearsed their routines many times over. Every detail had been checked, from the angle of a lampshade to the crease in the front desk attendant's tie. Marcus felt proud of how they all stood, confident and courteous. He paused at the foot of the grand staircase that led up to the guest floors. The banister was carved with intricate patterns and polished until it shone. He traced the curve of the wood with his eyes, pictured the gala tonight, with the ribbon cutting and champagne flutes in every hand. He imagined local news cameras rolling and reporters asking him about his vision. He felt his heart beat faster with excitement. This hotel reopening was more than an event. It was a message. It said that history and innovation could live together. It said that a building once forgotten could become a place of warmth and elegance. Once again, Marcus approached the front desk, a long counter of dark polished wood polished to a mirror finish. He smiled at the two attendants standing behind it. The young woman on the left had just finished hospitality school, and the man on the right was a local resident who had worked here years ago before the old owners had closed the hotel. Marcus had told them both that he valued their talents and their stories. He believed in giving people a chance to grow, as he had once needed others to believe in him. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice calm and friendly. "I'd like to confirm my reservation for tonight. The suite under my name?" Marcus Davis placed his leather portfolio on the counter. Inside was his owner ID, which listed him as the majority shareholder and CEO of Heritage Grand Hospitality Group. The young woman accepted his ID and began to type. Marcus watched the screen, expected to see his name, the suite number, and maybe a friendly note from the manager welcoming him back. Instead, the attendant's fingers paused, and she frowned slightly. She glanced at her colleague, who leaned over to look. "I'm sorry, Mr. Davis," she began, her voice polite but uncertain. "I'm not finding a reservation under that." "Name?" She frowned again, then added, "The hotel is fully booked for the gala tonight. All rooms are assigned to our VIP guests." Marcus felt a jolt of surprise. His chest tightened. There had to be a mistake. He leaned forward. "That can't be right. I'm Marcus Davis, the owner. I personally approved this reservation weeks ago. He tried to keep his tone steady, hiding the shock that trembled beneath his calm words. She glanced at her colleague for guidance but said nothing. The male attendant cleared his throat. Sir, perhaps you could check again with our manager? He handles special reservations. Marcus nodded, pressed a button on the counter. Moments later, a hotel manager in a dark suit approached. Marcus had never seen her before. She was a tall woman with sharp features and a polite smile that did not reach her eyes. Mr. Davis, she said, extending her hand. Welcome back to the Heritage Grand. Her handshake was firm but cold. I'm Laura Benson, the hotel manager. She looked at his ID, then at her computer screen. A brief hesitation crossed her face before she spoke again. I see no record of this suite being booked. And as I mentioned, we're at capacity for tonight's event.
Marcus
Felt a strange knot form in his gut. He squared his shoulders. He had come here expecting to be celebrated, to be thanked for rescuing this beautiful building. Instead, he faced doubt and confusion from his own manager. He swallowed hard and said, voice low but steady, "This is my hotel. I own this property. I made that reservation, approved every detail of this event." Laura's polite smile stayed in place. "I understand, sir, but our system does not reflect your reservation. I'm afraid there is nothing I can do at the moment." Now she looked around as though expecting someone else to appear and fix the problem. The lobby felt suddenly colder. Guests paused in their conversations and glanced toward the front desk. Some whispered quietly. Marcus could feel his dignity prickling. He wanted to shout, to demand respect, but he held himself back. His executive assistant, a poised woman named Carla, stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on his arm. She offered a small smile of reassurance. Marcus gave her a quick nod. Carla always stayed calm in tense moments. He leaned in and whispered, "Record this. I want everything documented." Carla tapped her phone screen and the small microphone icon lit up. Marcus gave her a grateful look. He turned back to Laura. "I'd like to see the reservation records on your system." Laura nodded and led him to a computer terminal behind the desk. She clicked through menus and folders. Marcus watched over her shoulder. No record of Marcus Davis. No note of his ownership. No mention of the personal suite. His pulse quickened. He pressed gently. "Are you sure nothing was entered? No special notes?" Laura shook her head, unease flickering in her eyes for the first time. Marcus took a deep breath. He needed to stay composed. Anger would not help him here. He needed facts. He needed proof. He needed a plan. He stepped back from the desk and raised his voice just enough to draw attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Marcus Davis, the owner of this hotel. For some reason, my reservation is missing from the system. I'm going to step into my office and straighten this out." He gave a polite bow to the guests and staff watching. "I appreciate your patience. The gala will begin shortly." He strode toward the staff-only door at the side of the lobby. Carla followed quietly. As they walked through the private hallway, Marcus felt a mix of shock, frustration, and resolve. He would not be denied service in his own hotel. He would not allow prejudice or miscommunication to tarnish this moment. He would find a solution and show everyone that respect and dignity mattered more than any misunderstanding. Behind him, the lobby returned to its warm hum of voices. But Marcus knew the energy had shifted. He knew eyes would be on him when he returned. He knew tonight would not be just another reopening. It would become the moment the Heritage Grand would prove that fairness and justice could be more powerful than marble and crystal. And Marcus Davis, the man who built his success from nothing, was ready to show everyone exactly what he intended to do next. Marcus paused just outside his private office door, taking a steadying breath before turning back toward the lobby. He straightened his tie and smoothed the front of his suit jacket, stepped through the doorway again, but this time he walked. With a quiet confidence that came from decades of building businesses and facing down challenges, he had not come this far to be ignored. As he re-entered the lobby, the chatter among guests and staff hushed. A few people whispered to each other, glancing at him with curiosity. Marcus lifted his chin and met their eyes with a calm smile. He walked deliberately back to the front desk, where Laura Benson, the hotel manager, stood waiting, her polite Expression had given way to a thin line of tension around her mouth. Laura inclined her head. "Mr. Davis," she said, her voice steady but soft, "is everything all right?" She gestured toward an empty chair behind the desk. "Please. Have a seat if you wish." Marcus nodded and pulled out a chair, placed both hands on the desk and leaned in slightly. "Thank you, Laura," he said, using her name to ease the formality just a bit. "I want to understand what happened with my reservation. I made every arrangement for this gala weeks ago. I reviewed the final guest list and approved the suite. Assignments myself. Somehow, someone deleted or never entered my own booking." He paused to let his words sink in. "I need to know how that can happen." Laura's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She swallowed and glanced toward the other desk attendant, who looked uneasy. Then she turned back to Marcus. "I've checked the digital records," she began, "and I see all the VIP guests, the press, the staff. But I don't see any entry in your name. It looks like it was never saved." Marcus nodded slowly. He already knew her answer, but he needed her to say it. "All right," he said. "Let's look at the security logs. I'd like to see who had permission to delete entries, and when that might have occurred." Laura frowned, but tapped a few keys. A file window opened, showing daytime timestamps. Marcus studied them. Several entries added and removed in the early morning hours. He pointed to one line. "Look here. Someone with manager privileges deleted the Davis Marcus entry. At 3:47 a.m., he met Laura's eyes. An hour after I sent the final reservation list to you." Laura's shoulders tightened. She closed the file. "Can't say who it was. The logs don't name a user. I'll have to ask our IT department." She glanced down the lobby as if hoping they would appear to help. "I'll get to the bottom of this right away, Mr. Davis." Marcus let out a slow breath. "Please do," he said. "And in the meantime, I'd like to speak with you privately about how we correct this. I should be in my suite, preparing for tonight's ribbon cutting. My team is waiting on my confirmation." Laura nodded, clearing her throat. "Of course, let me make a few calls. I'll find a solution." She stepped away to her office phone. Marcus watched her serve other guests for a moment. Approached him with a tray of sparkling water glasses. Marcus took one, his mind racing. He knew the gala would start in less than an hour. The caterers were in place. The local news crew was setting up cameras. He could not afford to delay or cancel. But more than that, he could not let this quiet refusal go unanswered. As the CEO and owner, he had to show leadership. He turned toward the concierge desk, where an older man in a sharp uniform stood by a guest registering for a weekend stay. Marcus approached him gently. "Good afternoon," he said. "I'm Marcus Davis, the owner. Could you help me arrange a temporary sitting area for my team? They're just outside, and we need a space to discuss final details." The concierge's eyebrows rose in surprise. Then he smiled broadly and nodded. "Of course, Mr. Davis. Right this way." Marcus followed him down a marble corridor into a small, sunlit parlor lined with velvet chairs. His assistant Carla and the event planner, Mark, greeted him with relieved smiles. Carla closed her phone recording. Mark pushed forward a clipboard. "Everything is set," Mark said, voice low but eager. "Catering arrives at 7. Media at 7:30. All speeches ready." Marcus nodded, but his mind was still on the missing reservation. He could not ignore it. He looked at Carla and said quietly, "I need to pause for just a moment. Let's hold off on finalizing the guest list until I sort out this reservation issue. I'll be right back." Carla nodded and took her seat. Mark sighed and sat down. 2, checking his watch. Leaving them there, Marcus walked briskly back to the lobby. He paused where the marble floor met the carpeted area, taking in the scene. Guests chatted in small groups. Staff moved about with trays of hors d'oeuvres. The hall felt alive, expectant. It was the rebirth of a grand hotel, yet here he was, its owner sidelined by an apparent technical glitch, or worse, a purposeful snub. He squared his shoulders and returned to the front desk. Laura was off the phone now, biting her lower lip. She cleared her throat. "Mr. Davis? I've spoken to it," she said, voice firm. "Now they say no one with access is missing." The system every night syncs with the central server and no errors have been reported. I'm sorry, but I don't know how your reservation disappeared. Marcus's jaw clenched. He forced his face to remain calm. All right, he said. Then we'll handle this another way. I want to speak with the head of operations. Need to escalate this to someone who can authorize manual booking in my name immediately. Laura nodded again, but she looked uncertain. Our head of operations is off-site today, Mr. Davis. She's traveling for another project. I could reach her by phone. She hesitated. But if you'd like an immediate solution, I can personally move a staff suite or a VIP room to your name. We can call it the owner's suite. Marcus shook his head. No, I want the suite I booked. It's the one with the view of the garden. It was confirmed in my email. He held out his phone, with the confirmation message open. Here is the booking code. It ends with 919. He tapped the screen to show her. Laura leaned in to look. She frowned. That code doesn't match any suite here, she said, frowning more deeply. I'm not seeing a garden view listed under that code. She looked up, her eyes apologetic. Mr. Davis, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do right now. A murmur went through the lobby again. Marcus felt a hot surge of disappointment. He had anticipated resistance from competitors or speeches gone wrong, but he had not expected this. Not from his own people. He held out his hand for a moment, wanting to take back his anger. Then he let it drop to his side. He took another deep breath. His heart pounded, but his mind stayed sharp. There was no use arguing pointlessly here. He needed proof and leveraged something public. Marcus straightened up. He spoke in a clear, calm voice so that everyone nearby could hear. I understand the situation, but I cannot accept being denied service at my own hotel. I'm going to address this immediately and find out who is responsible. He turned. On his heel, walking toward the center of the lobby, he lifted his phone. If everyone could kindly give us a moment, I'd like to make an announcement. Heads turned. The pianist in the corner paused. Even Laura looked startled. Marcus tapped his phone, signaling Carla to put it on loudspeaker. A small crowd gathered around him, curiosity written on their faces. Marcus smiled, his expression warm but firm. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice carrying clearly, thank you for gathering here on this special day. I'm Marcus Davis, the owner of the Heritage Grand Hotel. He paused as cameras nearby tilted toward him. I regret to tell you that my personal suite reservation has been erased from our system, and I have been denied access to the room I booked months ago. He looked at Laura with steady eyes. I want to assure you all that we will fix this. We will uncover how this happened, and we will make things right. There was a moment of stunned silence. Then whispers rose among the guests. Some nodded their heads. A few staff members looked embarrassed. Marcus held up his phone. Carla, would you please share the recording of the reservation records we just viewed? Carla tapped her phone again, and a small speaker on the counter crackled. To life, the recorded clicks, and the clear deletion log played out. The crowd listened. When it ended, Marcus spoke again. I believe in transparency and respect. I believe that everyone here deserves fair treatment, whether you are a guest, a staff member, or the person who built this place. We will not tolerate mistakes or biases that divide us. Applause broke out, soft at first, then stronger. Guests and staff began clapping. Laura looked down, ashamed. Marcus felt a surge of relief and empowerment. He had taken an unthinkable snub and turned it into a moment of truth. He knew there would be more steps to follow, formal investigations, policy changes, and perhaps apologies, but he had made his point. Dignity and justice mattered more than any reservation. As the applause continued, Marcus lowered his hand and motioned toward the grand staircase. Now, he said, voice warm again, let's continue with our celebration. Tonight is about the Heritage Grand's new chapter, and I'm honored to open it with all of you. He stepped aside and extended his arm, inviting everyone to follow him up the stairs into the ballroom. The lobby erupted into cheers. Marcus walked up the stairs with his head held high. He had faced the unthinkably denial of service at his own hotel, and he had responded with courage, evidence, and compassion. The Heritage Grand would remember this night not for its glitch, but for the strength and unity it revealed. Marcus returned to his private office suite, closing the door behind him with a soft click. He sat at the large mahogany desk, its surface cleared of papers except for his laptop, his notebook, and a glass of water. The late afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows, casting warm light on the room. Outside, he could hear the distant murmur of the gala preparations and the soft strains of a sound system being tested in the ballroom. It all should have felt triumphant. Instead, Marcus felt a mix of frustration and determination. He tapped his fingers lightly on the desk, thinking back to the moment he was denied service in his own hotel. Gosh, it had been a shock, something he never imagined would happen. Yet here it was, a clear sign of bias or incompetence. He had two choices: let it pass as a simple mistake, or turn it into a powerful lesson. He chose the latter. Carla, his executive assistant, stood by the door, phone in hand. I had recorded the entire interaction, and now she waited for his instructions. Marcus leaned back in his chair and took a deep breath. "Carla," he said, voice steady, "thank you for recording that conversation. We have the deletion logs and the denial of my reservation. Send everything to our legal counsel right away." Carla nodded and tapped her phone. Marcus could trust her to handle that. He opened his notebook and scribbled 3 words at the top of the page: board emergency call. He needed to alert his board of directors without delay. This incident was more than a hotel glitch. It was a direct challenge to the values he had built his company upon. He believed in fairness, inclusion, and respect. If he did not address this swiftly, it could damage the hotel's reputation and betray his own principles. Marcus typed quickly on his laptop, drafting an urgent email. He addressed it to the board chair and copied the entire board. He wrote, in clear, concise sentences, explaining the incident, how his reservation had been deleted, how he was denied service, and how the manager had no explanation. He attached the recording and the screenshots of the system logs. He proposed an immediate video conference to discuss next steps, and he pressed send. Almost instantly, his phone buzzed with a calendar invitation titled Emergency Meeting, Heritage Grand Incident. The board chair, Angela Kim, had accepted, blocking off 20 minutes starting in 10 minutes. Marcus looked at the invitation with relief. They understood the urgency. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the courtyard below, where event tents were going up. Even this grand scene should unite people in celebration. But now, it also reminded him why he fought so hard to create a welcoming place for everyone. He turned back to his desk and opened a folder labeled Crisis Plan. Inside were notes from past challenges, supply delays, minor PR issues, staff changes. This was the first time he faced something so personal and so public. He read over his own guidelines, gather facts, communicate transparently, propose fair solutions, and follow through with action. He felt the familiar rush of energy that guided him through tough times. Carla knocked softly and entered with a cup of coffee. "I have the full call transcript with the manager," she said, placing a printed copy on the desk. It confirmed. "No system errors. The deleted entry is intentional." Marcus nodded, absorbing the fact. He sipped the coffee and set it down. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed the in-house PR director, Stephen. The call connected on speaker. "Stephen, it's Marcus," he said. "I need you to prepare a brief statement for tomorrow's media inquiries. Keep it factual. Acknowledge the error, express regret, and outline our steps to prevent this." Stephen's calm voice replied, "Understood, Marcus. I'll draft it and send for your review within the hour." Marcus thanked him and ended the call. He leaned forward, eyes bright with purpose. He opened his laptop again and joined the video link for the board meeting. Within seconds, 12 faces appeared on the screen, all showing concern. Angela Kim spoke first, her tone serious. "Marcus, we saw your email. Tell us what happened." We took a moment to gather his thoughts. "Thank you all for joining on such short notice," he began. "Earlier today at the reopening of the Heritage Grand, I attempted to confirm my own reservation for the Suite 1 booked for tonight's gala. The manager said there was no record of it and that the hotel was fully booked. I provided proof, my ID, the confirmation code, but the system showed no entry. Worse, our IT logs revealed that the entry was deleted by someone with manager-level access. A hush fell over the board members. Angela adjusted her glasses. "Deleted intentionally?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "That's what the logs indicate. I was denied service in my own hotel. I believe this is an act of bias, or at least gross negligence. Either way, it cannot stand." Board member Henry Lopez chimed in. "This is serious. It could damage our reputation." "What do you want us to do, Marcus?" Marcus appreciated Henry's directness. He switched to screen share and displayed the logs and the email transcript. "First, we must take immediate action to correct this incident. I have already instructed Carla to send the evidence to our legal counsel. Second, I propose we place the hotel manager, Laura Benson, on administrative leave pending investigation. Third, we need a clear plan to retrain all hotel staff on our values and policies, focusing on fairness and respect. Finally, we must publicly commit to zero tolerance for discrimination." Angela nodded. "I support placing her on leave immediately. We must also reach out to guests who witnessed this and offer personal apologies." Marcus agreed. He added, "I will meet with the manager personally later today to discuss next steps. I want her to understand the gravity of her actions. Then, I will lead bias training sessions for all hotel properties. I also plan to partner with a civil rights nonprofit to show our commitment." Board member Priya Desai spoke up. "This is a strong approach, but we should also ensure we have a hotline for employees to report discrimination. It will show we're serious." Marcus smiled. "Excellent idea. Let's implement that network-wide." He typed notes as the board members continued to offer ideas: a public statement, a charity donation, a scholarship program for hospitality workers from diverse backgrounds. After 20 minutes, Angela looked to Marcus. "Do you feel we have a solid plan?" He nodded. "Yes, I'll handle the legal and PR aspects. I'll meet with the manager, then begin the staff training. We'll roll out the hotline and partner with the nonprofit next week. Thank you all for your support." Angela ended the meeting. Marcus closed his laptop with a quiet click. He leaned back, grateful for the board's swift action. He thought about the guests arriving shortly for the gala. He wanted tonight to be memorable for the right reasons: the hotel's rebirth, the community coming together not for a scandal. He stood and paced the room, then decided to call his personal mentor, Robert Jackson, a respected elder in the hospitality industry. Robert answered on the third ring. "Marcus, how's it going?" he asked warmly. Marcus recounted the incident and the board's plan. Robert listened and then said, "You handled this well, Marcus. You stayed calm, gathered facts, and acted transparently. That's leadership. Tonight's event will go on, but make sure to speak from the heart when you address your guests. Show them the values you stand for. People will remember that." Marcus thanked Robert and ended the call, feeling steadier. He checked his watch. 30 minutes until the gala. He called Carla back in. "Get Mark and the catering manager here," he said. "I want to confirm the schedule and make sure no one else is left in doubt about our commitment to fairness." Carla nodded and left to gather the team. Alone again. Marcus reflected on what had begun as a humiliating moment. Denied service in his own hotel was more than an affront, it was a test. He realized true leadership meant facing hardship openly. He would not sweep this under the rug. Instead, he would turn it into a story of accountability and change. He moved to the window and watched the staff bustle below, arranging chairs and decorations. His children of staff on a quick tour waved up at him. He waved back, smiling. Carla returned with Mark and the catering manager, Alina. They gathered around the desk. Marcus outlined the plan: the manager on leave, the public apology, the staff training. He thanked them for their work and assured them that tonight's event would go ahead on schedule. He reminded them that every guest, no matter who they were, deserved respect. They nodded, encouraged by his clarity as they left to finalize details. Marcus felt a sense of calm purpose. He had faced an unexpected challenge, but he had responded with strategy and heart. He closed his eyes for a moment, envisioning the gala, the ribbon cutting, the applause, the sense of community. Then he opened his eyes and walked to the door, ready to step back into the lobby. He would show everyone that leadership meant standing up for what was right, even when it was hard, and that the Heritage Grand would always be a place of dignity and welcome. Marcus paused at the top of the grand staircase, the soft carpet beneath his polished shoes muffling his steps. Below him, guests murmured in excitement as they gathered in the ballroom. The space glittered with festive lights and elegant bouquets. The piano in the corner played a gentle melody. Marcus straightened his jacket and cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. Even the hotel staff who lined the walls fell silent. He felt the weight of the moment, but also the thrill. This night would mark a turning point. He raised his hand in a small wave. Cameras clicked, and a hush fell over the crowd. "Good evening, everyone," he began, his voice calm and steady. He glanced at Laura Benson, the manager, standing by the side, her expression taut with anxiety. Marcus gave her a brief nod. "Tonight, we celebrate the reopening of the Heritage Grand Hotel, a place with a long history and a bright future." He paused, letting his words settle. The guests leaned forward, their eyes shining with interest. Marcus took a breath. "However, before we cut the ribbon, I must address something important." He tapped the microphone lightly. "Earlier today, I attempted to confirm my own reservation as the owner of this hotel. To my surprise, I was told that no record of my booking existed and that the hotel was fully booked." A ripple of astonished whispers passed through the crowd. Marcus raised his finger for silence. "I provided proof, my ID, my confirmation code, but the system showed no entry. Worse, the logs revealed that my reservation was deleted by someone with manager-level access." A hush fell. Guests exchanged glances. A few staff members shifted uncomfortably. Marcus held their gaze. "I believe what happened was wrong. Number 20. One should be denied service in their own home, and no guest should face unfair treatment." He turned to Laura, who looked down at her feet. "Laura, as the manager, you were responsible for ensuring every reservation. Your role is to welcome guests, to treat them with respect. Today that duty was broken." Laura lifted her eyes, meeting his steady stare. She swallowed and nodded slightly. Marcus continued, "Laura will be on administrative leave while we investigate. This decision is not personal, it is necessary to show that accountability matters here." He felt a surge of relief at saying the words aloud. "We will learn from this mistake. We will improve our systems and our training. We will commit to zero tolerance for bias and negligence." He looked back at the guests. "Let this be a lesson to all of us." His voice softened. "This hotel stands for history and elegance, but also for respect and justice. We rebuild more than walls and chandeliers. We build trust and fairness." A few guests clapped, then more joined in. The applause grew until the room echoed with approval. Marcus scanned the faces lit by soft-light families, business travelers' friends, and felt a deep warmth. Circle of applause felt like a promise. They believed in him and in the hotel's values. They stepped down from the staircase and approached Laura. She straightened, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. Marcus stopped beside her, speaking low enough that only she could hear. "I want you to learn from this," he said kindly. "I believe people can grow when given the chance. When this is over, I hope you will join us in making the Heritage Grand a place where everyone feels welcome." Laura nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Pivoting, Marcus turned back to the guests. He smiled broadly. "Now, let's cut that ribbon." He lifted a pair of ornate scissors with a flourish. The ribbon, a satin band of deep burgundy, stretched across the ballroom entrance. Standing with the hotel's design chief, the head of catering, and a few longtime staff members. Marcus positioned the scissors at the center. Cameras snapped rapidly. He drew a deep breath and sliced through the ribbon. It fell in graceful loops to the floor. A burst of applause and cheers filled the room. Confetti cannons boomed softly, showering the air with metallic flecks. Marcus laughed, feeling a rush of joy and triumph. He allowed himself a moment to bask in it. Around him, guests began to move forward into the newly restored ballroom. Soft laughter and chatter rose up. The pianist shifted to a livelier tune, and servers passed trays of sparkling wine. Marcus walked among his guests, offering handshakes and smiles. He thanked each person for coming and for their patience. A young couple stopped him to say how beautiful the renovation was. An elderly man, a local historian, praised the careful restoration of the original woodwork. Marcus listened and nodded, genuinely touched by their words. Each interaction reminded him why he had fought so hard to save this grand old building. As he reached the center of the room, he saw Carla standing with a group of fellow executives. She caught his eye and gave him a thumbs up. Behind her, Mark smiled, holding the gala program. Marcus felt a surge of gratitude for his team. He walked over and whispered, "Thank you for sticking with me." Carla smiled back. "Always," she said softly. Voice announced that a short speech by Marcus Davis would follow. He stepped onto a small stage, set against a backdrop of velvet curtains. The lights dimmed slightly, and he spoke into the microphone. "This hotel's story is far from over. We will continue to learn, to grow, and to serve." He paused, looking over the crowd. "We will launch a series of workshops on fairness and respect for all staff. We will partner with local charities to support our community. And I promise that any guest who walks through those doors will be treated with the dignity they deserve." Murmurs of approval rippled through the audience. Marcus felt their support like a warm embrace. He smiled and concluded, "Thank you for being here tonight. Let's raise a glass to the Heritage Grand's next chapter." Waiters circulated with glasses of bubbly. Marcus raised his own glass. "Two new beginnings," he said. The guests echoed, "Two new beginnings." And the room rang with toasts. After the speech, the gala continued with music, dancing, and laughter. Marcus drifted through small groups, listening to conversations about the hotel's future. At one point, he stepped outside onto the terrace overlooking the garden. The night air was cool, and lanterns glowed among the flower beds. He leaned on the railing and watched the twinkling lights. It felt peaceful, a stark contrast to the tension of earlier hours. A colleague joined him, offering a glass of wine. "You handled everything brilliantly," she said. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "It wasn't easy," he admitted. "I believe leadership is about more than success. It's about integrity and standing up for what's right." The colleague smiled. "You inspired everyone here tonight?" He sipped his wine and looked back at the hotel's silhouette against the night sky. The Heritage Grand stood tall and welcoming, its windows glowing with life. Inside, laughter and music wove through the halls. The earlier conflict felt like a distant memory, transformed into a story of growth and unity. Marcus felt proud of how he had turned a personal insult into a powerful moment of truth. Soon, a small group came out to join him, staff members who had worked tirelessly on the renovation. Marcus shook their hands and thanked them. They beamed with pride. One young bellhop, eyes shining, said, "I've never been prouder to work here." Marcus smiled warmly. "Neither have I," he replied. The staff returned inside to continue the celebration. Marcus lingered a moment longer on the terrace, savoring the night. Then he turned and re-entered the ballroom, where a jazz band had started playing. He allowed himself one final dance, laughter echoing around him. Surrounded by guests and friends, he knew this was a night they would all remember, not for a mistake, but for the strength and unity that followed. The Heritage Grand was more than a hotel. It was a place where respect and justice could shine as brightly as its chandeliers. And Marcus Davis, its proud owner, had ensured it would always be so. In the days after the gala, Marcus woke early. Before the sun rose, his mind already buzzing with plans. He tied his tie carefully, took a deep breath, and walked from his private suite down the quiet hallway of the Heritage Grand. The hotel felt different now, full of promise and energy where only days before it had been tense. He entered the lobby and found Carla, his assistant, waiting with a stack of files. "Good morning," she said, her voice warm. Marcus smiled. "Morning," he replied. He took a file and glanced at the headline. Local news. Owner's reservation. Deleted hotel takes a stand. He looked across the lobby at the polished marble floor and the new art installations. Everything gleamed with fresh purpose. "Let's get started," he said. Carla led him to a small conference room where several board members were already seated. Angela Kim, the board chair, smiled as he entered. "We've seen your statement online," she said. "The public response is strong. People admire how you handled it." Marcus nodded. "Thank you. Now we need to follow through. I have 3 goals today. Finalize our staff training program, set up the employee hotline, and plan our partnership with the civil rights nonprofit." They spent the morning reviewing the training materials. Marcus believed education was more than reading slides. He wanted real conversations. He asked his team to include role-playing exercises where staff could practice welcoming every guest. No matter who they were, they added real-life scenarios drawn from other hotels around the world. Carla suggested bringing in guest speakers, people who had faced bias and learned to overcome it. Marcus loved the idea. By lunchtime, they had a full week of workshops planned. After lunch, Marcus walked through the hotel, stopping at each department. In the kitchen, he met Alina, the head of catering. She had worked late the night of the gala to fix the buffet when the schedule fell behind. Marcus thanked her and asked about her team's response to the training plan. "They're excited," Alina said, wiping her hands on her apron. "They want to be part of something positive." Marcus smiled. He could see the pride in her. Eyes next, he went to the front desk. The staff stood in a semicircle as he approached. He held up a glass of water. "To all of you," he said, "you've worked hard these past weeks. I need your help now more than ever. We'll start bias training next week. We'll open a hotline for any of you to report unfair treatment. No fear, just respect. Will you join me?" The staff clapped and cheered softly. Marcus felt their support like a warm breeze. That afternoon, he met with the IT director to set up the hotline. They decided to make it simple, a dedicated number and email, monitored by an external agency to ensure confidentiality. Marcus insisted that every report be logged and addressed within 48 hours. They drafted an announcement to share with all employees by evening. Walking back through the lobby, Marcus spotted a hotel guest reading a newspaper by one of the armchairs. The headline read, "Heritage Grand stands for justice." The guest met his eyes and gave a small nod of approval. Marcus gave a friendly wave. This was more than a business success. It was a community triumph. As dusk fell, Marcus returned to his suite to prepare for a community charity dinner he was hosting in the rooftop garden. The dinner would benefit a local scholarship fund for young people interested in hospitality. Careers, he changed into a simple dark suit and took the elevator to the top floor. The garden was glowing with soft lanterns and candles. Tables draped in white cloths were set with china and crystal glasses. Marcus breathed in the warm night air, scented by roses and jasmine. Carla joined him. "Everything is ready," she said, checking her tablet. Guests, including local charity leaders and journalists, were arriving soon.
Oh.
Marcus took a moment to look over the city skyline. He thought back to the gallery of problems that could have plagued this reopening. Delays, unhappy guests, word of mouth lost. Instead, he had a chance to reshape perceptions. He turned to Carla and nodded. "Let's begin." The first guests entered the garden, greeted by servers offering sparkling apple cider. Marcus moved among them, shaking hands and listening. A local pastor who had spoken out in support of the hotel's stance thanked Marcus for standing up. "For the community, your actions matter," the pastor told him. "You've shown that a business can be a force for good." Marcus smiled, touched by the words. When the garden was full, Marcus stepped to a small stage. He spoke simply. "Tonight, we celebrate more than reopening. We celebrate hope, fairness, and unity. I want to thank each of you for believing in the Heritage Grand. Together, we'll build opportunities for young people. We will stand against injustice, and we will make this hotel a shining example of what is possible when we respect one another." He raised his glass. "To a better future." The crowd echoed, "To a better future." And the clinking of glasses under the stars felt like music to his ears. After the dinner, guests mingled under the lanterns, talking about their plans to help with the scholarship fund. Marcus moved through the clusters of conversation, smiling and listening. He felt a deep sense of pride and purpose. This night was not just a celebration, it was the beginning of lasting change. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the hotel early again. Checked his phone and saw dozens of messages from employees thanking him for the training plan and the hotline. He answered a few personally, feeling grateful for their trust. Then Carla appeared. "The civil rights nonprofit is ready to meet," she said. Marcus nodded. He followed her to the boardroom. Representatives from the nonprofit entered a group of warm, dedicated people with years of experience fighting bias. They sat with Marcus and Carla and discussed how the hotel could support their work. Marcus offered to fund a community event series, bringing in experts to lead open forums on diversity and respect. The nonprofit's director beamed. "This partnership will reach many," she said. "Your hotel will be a model." Marcus smiled. "That's the goal." They spent the rest of the morning drafting a formal agreement. By noon, Marcus signed the papers, shaking hands all around. He opened the blinds to look out at the hotel's facade. The afternoon sun hit the stone walls, making them glow. Heritage Grand had recovered from the crisis and emerged stronger. Over the next week, Marcus checked in on each initiative. He sat in on the first bias training session in a small meeting room. He watched staff practice welcoming exercises, and he answered questions honestly about his own experience that day. He made sure the atmosphere stayed positive and encouraging. He also tested the hotline by making a dummy report, just to see that it worked smoothly. It did. On the following Monday, Marcus held a small press event in the lobby. Cameras and reporters filled the space. He spoke clearly. "Our hotel stands on a promise of respect. We have begun training, launched a hotline, and partnered with a nonprofit to support our community. We will continue to learn and improve. The Heritage Grand is not just a place to stay. It is a place where everyone is welcome." The coverage was glowing. Local news stations praised his leadership. Social media buzzed with support. Bookings at the hotel began to rise as people wanted to stay at a place known for its values. Watched the numbers on his dashboard with satisfaction that evening. Marcus sat alone in the rooftop garden, reflecting on the whirlwind of days. The lanterns flickered around him, and the city lights shimmered below. He thought of the moment he was denied service in his own hotel, thought of the manager's apology, and of the staff who believed in the new vision. He felt gratitude for the chance to turn a hurt into hope. He knew challenges would come again. Problems in any business were inevitable. But he also knew that with clear values, any crisis could become an opportunity for growth. He took out his notebook and wrote a few sentences. Lead with respect. Stand for justice. Build trust. He smiled, closed the notebook, and looked up at the sky. The Heritage Grand Hotel stood behind him, glowing with possibility. And Marcus Davis, the man who had faced an unthinkable slight, had shown that real power lay not in owning a building, but in honoring the dignity of every person who walked through its doors.